Hello and welcome. Today we're talking timber prep, why it's important and how we do it. Let's get started. So why is it important that we have square timber? For lots of reasons really, but it's the start of the machining process. So if we've got a nice flat edge to work across, that's going to help us when we're running things off of fences. So we're talking about bandsaw fences, table saws, the miter saw. So a really good place to start if we want to cut things square, to cut things parallel. So it's the beginnings of most of the projects that we're going to be doing. If we think about things like gluing two pieces together, we need two flat faces so they come together and have that good surface area. If we're talking about getting precision, we need to make sure if we're cutting things at right angles that we've got a nice straight edge to begin with as a register to go up against the miter saw fence, that we can cut that at perfect 90 degrees. That on the table saw, that we're running that nice straight edge down our fence to cut the other face parallel to the one that we've already machined. So there's lots of reasons why we would want square timber, but really it's the beginning point of your projects. The first step in the machining of cutting things to length, cutting things to width, and cutting things square. Okay, so before we get going, we're going to run through a few of the simple terms that we're going to be using throughout this video. Let's get my piece of timber and just run through a few of them. So, first of all, we're looking at the length. So this distance from here to here is your length. You've got your width from edge to edge, and then your thickness, how thick the piece of material is. This is your edge. We have the corner just running up here. We have our two ends, and then this is your face. Either side of the board could be the face. So the face and edge are really important. They're going to create all your reference points for all your future machining tasks. So let's have a look at our board. It may look square and flat, but there's a few things we need to consider. So why we're trying to flatten this is because it's got a twist in it. So you can see that it rocks from corner to corner. And also this shape here is called cupping. So you can see that there's a gap underneath there. We need to eliminate that gap and take out the rocking. So we've talked about the face, how it's cupped. So it has a slight cup across the width, and then along the length we've got a rock there. But now we want to talk about the edge. And just having a look, I can see there's a slight gap all along this bottom here, and there's a gap at this end here, indicating this is not completely straight. And that's the thing that we're going to machine off. So we need to machine this face, make this nice and flat. It's cupped across this way, so it's going to go down on the table like that, and we're going to push it that way. So we've machined this face now. This is nice and flat, and that's going to work well against our fence. And because we've used our square to get that at 90 degrees, when we machine this now, this edge will sit at 90 degrees to our clean face. So we need to ensure that the fence is square to the bed. So we're using our square here. We just need to adjust that one and then lock off on the back on a Bristol locking lever, and we're nice and square there at 90 degrees. And now we can machine our flat face here and that will give us a 90-degree edge on our plank. So we need to machine one of these edges now. We've got our nice flat face. Just a little tip on grain direction. You can see on this board that the grain is leaving out of the board in that direction. So when we machine this, it needs to be that way around so that the cutter block is coming towards us and it's not pulling the grain out. So it's coming this way and we're just trimming off all of those fibres along that bottom edge. So now we've cut this edge. We've got a nice flat face here, and then the edge is at 90 degrees to that. All nicely machined, nice and square, and we can check for squareness just using our square on the edge of the board. And we can hold that out to a light and look for any light gaps. So we've planed the face here, we've planed this side up against the fence and established that 90-degree edge. We have removed the rock from the board, so any twisting is all gone. It's no longer rocks on the bench, it's nice and flat. Now we can go through the thicknessing process. So our next job is to thickness this piece of timber. We've got a nice flat plain surface here, and the thicknesser is going to roll across the top and parallel this surface to that, so that we've got a nice flat plane through here in relation and in parallel to this face here. Now what thickness you go will depend on your project. We're going to machine this one to 20 mil. So let's convert our planer thicknesser into the thicknessing mode. We've got two Bristol locking levers just under the table here at either end. And then the whole table lifts. And this extraction outlet also acts as an overhead guard to protect us from the block. So we need to measure the thickness of our board. I've got a pair of calipers here, and we can set the table of the thicknesser to suit. Now this is about 22 mil thick. We need to measure in a couple of places because it's 23 up this end. So we're going to set the table height at 23 mil, and then this will just skim the very slight skim off the end of the board, and then we can bring the table up incrementally to get this nice and flat. So we can unlock the table here, another Bristol locking lever. And remember, we can raise this up now to 23. So just a quick recap of what we've done so far. We've planed a face. We've put a 90-degree edge on. We've now measured this board. We found it was about 23 millimeters, and we've brought the thicknessing table up to 23, and on the first couple of passes it may just take a little skim, but we don't want to take off too much on the first pass, so we've brought it up to that 23 mil, and now we can get to thicknessing. So we're done with thicknessing. Whenever we're not using the planer thicknesser, it should really sit in that planing mode. So we're going to drop the table and pop it back into the planing mode. So now our board is planed and thicknessed. It is flat on 3 sides, and that edge is at 90 degrees to both of these flat faces. So now this is suitable if we want to cut this to size. This flat edge can go up against the fence of a miter saw to cut to length. It is great up against the bandsaw fence, so if you wanted to cut it to width, and also on the table saw. This is going to be your register for cutting to length and cutting to width. And head over to our Woodworking for Beginners playlist on our YouTube channel for more useful woodworking tutorials.